So I went to boarding school. Was it a fun time? Yes. Does it meet some of the stereotypes? Yes. Today I wanted to talk about my first ever roommate from boarding school. So I was 14 when I first went to boarding school, and I went at the start of year 10. I was going as a full-time boarder to a school in the north of England in the countryside. I kind of just packed up my bags rather nonchalantly. I said bye to my mum, and there I was in my room. And I was going to share this room with one other person who I had no clue who they were. And yeah, so I got there first, unpacked a lot of my stuff, and I was just sat on my bed kind of waiting to meet this new person that I was going to be roommates with. And in he walked. So for the sake of this story, we'll call him Jeremiah. So Jeremiah walks in, looks quite normal. It all seemed fine. The first few weeks went by and it was all good. We got on well together. You know, he kind of showed me the ropes a little bit. He showed me the ropes. We went to breakfast sometimes. We weren't like best friends, but we, you know, had a few things in common. We didn't have that many lessons together. And yeah, we had games together. And that was about it. I had a few issues with this guy occasionally. Like, he was very messy, wasn't the best at washing his clothes and all that kind of stuff. But overall, you know, it was an alright experience. He was an only child. I am one of 7. So we had quite a different upbringing in that way. And this meant that he could have what many people call only child syndrome, and obviously not all only children have this, but basically if he didn't get his own way he would whine. And his parents were going through a divorce, and you know, that's never easy, and the way he explained it to me, it was really, really messy. So I felt kind of bad for him. So after a few months, you know, we've been playing rugby together, and I realised that Jeremiah, he was a bit of a wuss. So we'd be playing rugby, contact sport, and he'd get tackled, and if the hurt level was a 3 out of 10, he was implying it was a solid 8.5, and it was just ridiculous. I mean, he would go in to tackle you, and he would go in at your neck, and that's actually an illegal rugby tackle within the game. And so he was breaking the rules too. And I distinctly remember one time I was past the ball and I made a run, and Jeremiah comes out of nowhere to tackle me, and I just palm him off. A perfectly legal move to make, to hand him off, and he gets hit there, and he's pretending I've like murdered him. So he's holding his neck and he's pretending, and he goes on the floor, and then he ends up going to medical centre, and we don't see him for the rest of the games lesson. And then I go back to the room, which I know is going to be a bit awkward because he was like telling everyone, oh, Archie's such a foul player and all this kind of thing and all that. So I just knew, you know, it might be a bit awkward going back. So I walk in and the room stinks, absolutely reeks. He hasn't gotten changed out of his rugby kit, and bearing in mind this is in the north of England in the middle of winter, he is so muddy from playing rugby. The whole room stinks, there's mud everywhere. He's just lying on his bed, which doesn't have a sheet on, and it reeked. And I said, bloody hell, Jeremiah, what the hell is this? You know, this is absolutely disgusting, sort yourself out. I'm not living like this. He doesn't speak to me, refuses to speak to me. And I was just like, whatever. So that was incident number 1. And that was all right. Like, if that's as far as it went, he got over the whole tackling thing. But then the main incident came, also in rugby, a few weeks later. And this one was the real bad one. I will never forget it, and I'm sure many people in my year group will never forget what happened next. We're all in our rugby kit playing whatever. And then Jeremiah allegedly didn't feel very well, but to be honest, no one really took him seriously because he was always not feeling well when rugby practice was on. So we were all playing, and then we were in a ruck over, so someone had been tackled. Someone had been tackled, and I ran in to get the ball, and there was a smell. And it just smelled of shit. It just absolutely reeked of shit. And Jeremiah had pooed his... I shouldn't laugh, but you know, like, in rugby there's a saying like, oh, he shit himself if, you know, you're afraid to tackle someone or something like that. But he genuinely did. We were all in shock. Jeremiah's walking off the pitch like with his legs like that, waddling to where our room was. Like, looking back, we were quite mean, and by we I mean like that everybody kind of found it funny. You know, we tried to contain it, but like, we're 14 and someone has pooed their pants. But then at the end of the practice, I went back to my room and I was ready to be like, oh, it's not that bad, don't worry. Because I knew that, like, I felt bad for him. Like, come on, he's just pooed his pants in a rugby practice. That's rough. And so I was ready to go back and he wasn't there. He'd been taken home. So that's not the horror story. The bad thing comes next. I'm not going to blame the kid for pooing himself. If he had an upset stomach, it's embarrassing for that to have happened to him, but you know, I'm not going to hold that against him. However, it was what he did with the dirty pants. Did he put them in the washing basket? No. The bin? No. The bottom of his bag? Nope. Where were they? They were in the middle of his desk. Just lying there, in our room, in the middle of the desk, and they stunk. How can someone leave their dirty, and not just like used underwear, like dirty underwear, for their roommate, and frankly anyone to walk in to see? I did what any insane person would do at 14. I got his tennis racket, a squash racket or something, and I kind of held it, and I got the pair of pants at the end of it, and I flung them out of the room, and like aimed it down towards the bin in the corridor, and I was gonna go like sort them out in a minute. So I went to wash my hands, then I got distracted by one of my friends, but then I remembered, oh, I need to go move that fully into the bin. I went into the corridor and they had gone. Well, I had no clue at the time where they'd gone. I found out a few months later what had happened to these pants, but frankly, that's a whole other video. So that was another incident. I still felt bad for the guy. Like, you can imagine this kind of incident. It spread like wildfire. There was this guy in my tutor group who never really spoke to anyone, but suddenly he was telling everyone about what happened in our rugby practice. So a lot of people didn't know about it until the story exploded. That was incident number 2. And I was thinking at this point, I kind of want a new roommate, because I was better friends with somebody else, and Jeremiah and I, like, we got on sometimes, but you know, he was messy. He told me a lot of lies, frankly. He was always like, oh, I need 50p, you know, for the tuck shop. He was always complaining to me that he wanted to get fit and all this, and then going to the tuck. Like, there were so many things that happened, you know. He would sit there when we were supposed to be doing our homework just on his laptop, and his headphones would break, and he would just play it out loud. There were lots of things like that were just really annoying, but the worst part was he was just quite unhygienic, you know. He told me he had this rotten tooth. His breath absolutely reeked. The parts where I'd be like, I'm sorry, Jeremiah, but please brush your teeth. And Jeremiah told me, oh, it's because I've got a rotten tooth. And I said, oh, why don't you go get it fixed? And I know dentists can be expensive, but you get lots of treatment free when you're under 18 in the UK. And also his parents are paying board and school fees. I feel like they can afford to fix your teeth. But he did not for a very long time. Another incident I can remember is the showering. So his version of showering was walking into the shower, pressing the button, because it was one of those button press things where it lasts 15 seconds, spinning around once and getting out. He dried himself with a towel that hadn't been washed in, I feel like, months. I mean, I can't confirm that, but those towels are not cleaned often. I actually had to lock him out of our room, throw his towel on and said, go shower, please. I'm not joking. I had to force him to shower. And then another incident occurred. This incident was fully self-inflicted. So when we went down to breakfast in the mornings, we could get chocolate spread. Jeremiah decided one day that he would just take a full pot for himself, steal it from the dining hall. So he just took it in his pocket and hid it upstairs and put it in his lockbox. But this one night, it turns out we ran out because somebody had taken the chocolate spread. I said to one of my friends, I think that may have been Jeremiah. I think that he's the reason. And then that person told someone else. So this kind of actually falls back to me, but I didn't mean it to be malicious. Pretty sure it was Jeremiah. I mean, Jeremiah had been chatting crap about me for months. I didn't owe him a thing. It gets around the boarding house that Jeremiah's got the final chocolate spread. And then comes a posse of like 10 people storming down our corridor. And like Jeremiah runs into the room and locks the door. And I'm just sat in my bed. I think I was playing Quiz Up on my iPad. And, you know, he locks the door and I'm like, Jeremiah, you've got the chocolate spread, just give it to me. He's like, I don't have it. And I knew exactly where it was. He'd hidden it under his bed. And he was having like a big breakdown. And there was this one other guy who was in the year below us. We'll call him Ferdinand. And Ferdinand had his little groupies with him. And all of this over a £1.50 pot of chocolate spread. Eventually, I'm like, Jeremiah, I need to go for a number 2. I need to get. And he's like, you can't leave. And he rings his dad. So he rings his dad, and this is what I mean by he tells lots of lies. So he said, there's a group of people outside my door. They're beating me up, all this stuff. He was like, they're threatening me. They're saying I stole something when I didn't. And I was sat there listening like, this is absolute bollocks. He was making it out like his life was in danger. His dad was like, I'm gonna kill, like legit, this is what he said. He was like, I'm going to find Ferdinand's family and I'm going to kill his dad. No one's gonna mess with my son. He was one of those types of dads, which hence the only child syndrome. But it was ridiculous. He's just like, I'm gonna come drive to pick you up. Bear in mind, it's about 10 o'clock at night and he lives an hour away. And it's a school night. And he's saying all this, and then I eventually had to leave, got to go for this number 2, because I don't want to be a fellow victim of the poo pants situation. I go for the toilet, they storm in, get the chocolate spread. Jeremiah pretends he's been beaten up further when I'm pretty sure they didn't do anything to him. Very dramatic, the whole thing. He rings his dad again. His dad keeps on ringing him until quite late at night. Then our housemaster walks in because Jeremiah's dad had rang him and God knows what he said, it would have been absolute bollocks. And then loads of people got put on litter picking duty, all because Jeremiah stole the chocolate spread and hid it under his bed. That situation was the final straw for me. I had been secretly making moves with someone else in the corridor to perhaps be able to share with them. We got on much better, had much more in common, had similar levels of hygiene. And so it took a few months, but I managed to kind of get myself out of that room without causing too much hatred between us. And actually, we became eventually much better friends. You know, it was a good few years ago now. I'm sure we both matured a lot. And then he stayed for one more year at school after that, and I haven't had much contact with him at all since then. But we did actually leave on good terms. And the following year, when we were all allowed our own rooms, we were actually really good friends. So it all ended up quite well, but God, was that an absolute nightmare. It was certainly an experience, and going to university, I'm dreading being put in a situation like that again in halls, but I will not deal with it for that long again. Honestly, I cannot deal with it for that long again. It's just wild. So I have so many crazy stories from boarding school, story times from living in London that, you know, I feel like would make really interesting videos. So if any of you are interested in hearing any more, let me know, because this is just scratching the surface of my boarding school experience. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you'd like more content, if you'd like to see more content from me. I'll be posting fairly often because it's the holidays before school and before university, and when September comes around, I'll be posting lots of like law school, UCL, London type content. So if you're interested in that, then stick around. Thanks for watching.